warmly welcome you all. The great Nippon.
It is really a great honor for Career Development Center of Daffodil International University for arranging the workshop today. All of you know that the topic of our workshop is Global People Paradigm, Shifting the Frontier of People Management.
Let's have a big hand for Mr. Porter again. And a big hand for yourselves. So thank you for coming and thank you for your patience. As you know, it rained heavily today and the traffic is terrible. That's why Michael got stuck in the traffic and that's why we're late. So apologies there. Before Michael starts, before we came to the I was talking to Michael and he used to be a footballer. And he says he was much slimmer before. A lot slimmer. And he played professional football and then he played Bolton Wanderers. And then he played cricket. And then he started doing something. And as you see, he has moved into global people. The title of the workshop, Global People Paradigm. So what could these three words mean? We are people, but what about global? Everything has become global. Students are moving out, students are moving in. We also have many international students. So any person studying at any university has to think global. And management has become. And in other countries, for instance in the United States, they prefer employees who have external overseas experience and then they come back to the States to work. So that this has become a global phenomenon and Michael's consulting has moved into this new paradigm and he'll share with you his experiences and the way he works. So, no more ado, let's get into it. Thank you.
Of Daffodil International University to present a brief profile of Mr. Michael A. Porter. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Reza Shahbaz Hadi.
We have power in we. The power that keeps us alive, the power that keeps us smiling, the power that keeps us motivating. So is it really possible that this power is enough solely? Certainly not. What we need is to convert this power into manpower. Is it really possible to convert this thing from power to manpower in a single night? It's not a bit of a joke. It's not that much easy. We need a leader, we need a trainer, we need a motivator who can easily empower us so that we can easily overpower all our shortcomings and we can show our superpower in the world of current business phenomena. So ladies and gentlemen, today we have Mr. Michael A. Porter. He's a great genius, a great motivator, a truly talented person who can easily turn our power into superpower and empower us so that we can thrive ourselves in current competitive age of business. So his level of expertise has reached to a certain limit that he has proposed his very own model, the new People Management Metrics model. Current year, at the early stage, near February 1 to 9, he proposed this model at BSHRM in a conference. Here he showed his own criteria, his own style of motivating people. We are wishing to learn something from him about this. Moving on. We already know that Mr. Porter is already working as consultant in different firms, as you can see from the slide. But this is not the end. Really, this is not the end. Because you won't believe that he has conducted some leadership training program in 4 English Premier League football clubs and 4 European football clubs as well. Yeah, it's true. Today, Mr. Porter will be talking about Global People Paradigm, Shifting the Frontier of People Management. This topic has no significance only in Bangladesh. Rather, this topic has significance throughout the world. For example, he has presented this model in the last month in Zimbabwe, and in the next month, it's working somehow. However, moving on. In his life, Mr. Potter has won many awards and he has numerous achievements. So, I'm mentioning just two of them. He has won Dave Cushing International Fellowship Award in 2009, I guess in 2012 actually, yeah. And in 2009, he won the Global HR Excellence in HR Leadership. Moving on. While talking about publications, he has published many books, many journals, and he has developed some DVDs in his area of expertise. And in case of keynote speeches, he was presented and he delivered his speech as keynote speaker in numerous international and national level conferences, conventions, seminars, workshops, as you can see, a long chart. So, people sitting from this corner to that corner might think that Michael Potter is a bit, what should I say, a bit serious guy, like he was just going for HR trainings. This is not the thing. His talent is not confined to that level, truly speaking. In his early ages, as our Yusuf sir said, that he was a sports freak guy in his early ages. He used to play rugby, football, and cricket. You'll be surprised that in rugby, he has appeared for 3 occasions in Lancashire under-15 team, and in case of football, he played many club and county level matches and he has scored 134 goals. Certainly. Well, moreover, in case of cricket, the scenario is different. He is a real, true all-rounder. He has scored 102 half centuries and he has taken 6 or more wickets for more than 200 times. So you might be thinking, how are people can be that much versatile in nature? Actually, I'm surprised. A bit jealous as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, we must not wait and we must have a very big hand for Mr. Michael Potter, and please allow me to leave the floor. Thank you.
Now, the big moment is coming forward, for which we are waiting actually. At this stage, I would like to invite Mr. Michael A. Potter to conduct his workshop on Global People Paradigm, Shifting the Frontier of People Management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Michael A. Potter.
Good afternoon, everybody. I still can't hear you. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, that's better, thank you. I'm sorry I'm a little hard of hearing. A very, very warm welcome. First of all, I would like to apologise for keeping you all waiting. I do apologise because I know you've been waiting a little while. We did get stuck in traffic, so we're a little bit behind schedule. So I do apologise for that. Just before I start, I'd like to make just 1 or 2 announcements. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, Daffodil University, for inviting me here today to be able to speak in front of such a large group of people. This is the largest event I have run this time round in Bangladesh. I think there's some 120 people here today. So thank you, all of you, for taking the time to come here today and listen to what I have to say. Thank you. And also thank you very much to Reza for that beautiful introduction. I do appreciate you must have put some hours in putting that together, so thank you very much for that. I'm just waiting for my PowerPoint to come up and then we can make a start. I'm going to rove around a little bit. I might even come and walk around the room, so don't be too worried if I start to walk around. I'm not spying on you. Okay? So, I'm very pleased to be here. We've got 3 hours, or just over 3 hours, of a session that I do hope you find interesting. I'd just like to, before we start, just tell you a little bit more about myself. For those of you who've been at my events before this week, I do apologise if you've already heard this. So, I come from the city, near to the city of Manchester in the United Kingdom. Has anybody been to Manchester? Okay, well you're all very welcome, so if you decide to go to Manchester, please let me know. As Reza said, I did start my life, my first career was a sporting career. I know in Bangladesh cricket is very popular, and of course cricket was one of the sports that I used to love. So actually my first job was as a trainee professional footballer. When I was 14, I was playing for my local club one day, and I didn't know, but there was a scout watching the game who noticed me playing, and before I knew before I knew where I was, I'd been invited to have a trial for a team called Bolton Wanderers. Have you heard of this team, Bolton Wanderers? Yes. You've heard of it, okay. They used to play in the English Premier League until 2 seasons ago and got relegated, so now they're still in the Championship, which is the one below the English Premier League. In fact, the season starts on Saturday, so everybody's waiting for the new start of the season. How many people here like football? Please put your hands up if you like football. Okay. How many people support a team from Manchester? Could you please have your hand? Okay, none. All right. How many Barcelona supporters here? Okay, lots. I thought there would be. So on the left-hand side is the new stadium that Bolton Wanderers built. It's called the Reebok Stadium. But of course, when I used to play, that stadium wasn't there. It was the old ground, Burnden Park. This is a team. This is a game last season against Chelsea. Oh, sorry, a season ago. You can see Torres in the black playing for Chelsea, and the Bolton players are in the white. Unfortunately, I wasn't playing in that game. This is me as a young boy when I started my career. Can you see how slim I am and how long my hair is? Long hair. You know, I was about 3 stone lighter. I could run 100 metres in 13 seconds those days. Now I struggle to walk 100 metres. You know, how time takes its toll. I don't know what happened to my hair. I think it's the stress of travelling, you know. So this was me as a young man, and of course, when I was 14, I signed as a schoolboy. 16, I left school and started to play in the FA youth teams against the youth teams of Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, Arsenal, all these teams, playing at all the top grounds: White Hart Lane, Goodison Park, Anfield, Old Trafford, Main Road, as the city's ground was called then. So I experienced all these beautiful grounds playing at youth level. When I was 16, I left school and took my first job as an apprentice professional footballer. I was so excited. I was going to be the next star, the top scorer in Bolton Wanderers and the England centre forward. That was my aim, because we all have to have aims, don't we, and ambition when we're just about to graduate from whatever we want to do. We all have to have dreams. That was my dream, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way. And when I was 18, the club made a decision to sign you as a professional or not. They didn't give me the contract. So that was the end of my football career. Just 18. I felt as though my world had collapsed around me. I felt as though life was over. I felt as though my dreams were shattered. But as Nelson Mandela once said, as one door closes, another door opens. And he said, it's not the way that people knock you down, it's the way that you get up again. You dust yourself down and you continue on your journey. And I believe he was right. So then, when I was 18, I exchanged my football boots for a suit and a pen. And I managed to get a traineeship working for the electricity industry in the United Kingdom. So I started new life as an administrative trainee on a graduate programme. I wasn't even a graduate, so I was lucky to get onto that programme. So I then spent 18 years in a corporate role working within the electricity sector, travelling around the country, being promoted, moving jobs. I started working in stores. I then went to work in finance. I then went to work in resource planning. I then went to work in technical administration. I then went to work in marketing and sales, and I ended up working in human resources or people management. And when I was in my early 30s, I left my company. They'd sponsored me to do an MBA at Lancaster. I'd just finished it. I'd always had this entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. I couldn't stop it. There was something telling me, Michael, you need to set up your own business. You need to be an entrepreneur. You need to do something. So I gave up my good job in corporate life and set up, like many people did on their own, as a one-man band, a consultant working for themselves. I was still relatively young, early 30s, but anyhow, I'm a risk taker. Are any of you risk takers in this room? Who likes to take a risk? Okay. Well, too much risk is not a good thing, but a calculated risk is not a bad thing. So, my burning desire to become an entrepreneur started. And in 1994, I set up my first company, MPA Consulting. My offices were my home. I had no staff. It was a one-man band, me. So then I went about working with my company, and that company has now been going for 20 years. 20 years. That's the reason I have no hair left. Running a corporate business for 20 years puts you under a lot of stress. When I started, it was just me. Now we have around about 200 people associated with that business. I've been through 3 recessions, still going. 10 years ago, I decided that although the United Kingdom is a nice country, it's a small country in the middle of the Atlantic, and the opportunities are limited. And I thought to myself, Michael, there's more to life than the UK. There's more to life. So I thought there's only one thing to do, to set up an international business. And I did that. I set up my second company, Michael A. Potter International. That's been going since 2003. I've travelled around a little bit now. My workplace is now basically 3 continents: Asia, Africa, the Middle East and Eastern Europe. That's where I ply my trade. That's where I work. My time in the UK is now limited. When I talk now, I don't talk about British issues or European issues. I talk about global issues. So anything that I'm going to talk about today is global. So these are some of the countries I've been. When you go through life, my advice to you people is maybe not to become a specialist in one particular area, but to generalize, to be a jack of all trade and a master of none, to be a specialist generalist. That's what I would say. A broad brush of knowledge and experience is what organizations are looking for today. You know, there was a recent global survey, and something like 2,000 executives across the world were asked, what sort of people do you want to hire in the future? What sort of competencies should they have? And 3 things came out of this. Number 1, we want people who are creative. How many people in this room are creative? Hands up. It's not enough. You all need to think about creativity. And that's not just being good at art or drawing, it's about thinking outside of the box. I'm sure you've learnt all about thinking outside of the box. The second thing was, we want people who are innovative. How many innovators do we have in this room? Hands up. We need more. We need more. And the third thing that the survey said, we want people with entrepreneurial spirit. How many people in this room have entrepreneurial spirit? How many people, when they leave university or at a later stage of their life, want to be entrepreneurs and have their own business? Okay. All right. Thank you. So these are some of the areas that over the years I've developed my expertise and skills. So I think it's very important that we develop our skills. Reza's already told you a little bit about these, so I'm not going to go through in any great detail again. Back in Manchester, you can see my think tank. This is my think tank. We set up the Manchester Research Group about 3 years ago, and this is an eclectic group of people from all over the world who are based in my offices in Manchester, and these are the people who help me to put together my programs. I can tell you they come from all over the world. Russia, Nigeria, Poland, Ukraine, Have a guess where this lady's from. Huh? India. What about this gentleman? Pakistan, yeah. You're experts, you see. Or you may have seen it before. You've seen it before. I like honesty in a person, do you? I do like honesty. UK, Poland and Poland. We have a diverse group of people who put their heads together and help me to develop my work. So it works something like this. I go around the world, I do all the horizon scanning. I look at the issues. I come back to the UK and I say, team, this is the issue. This is what's happening across the world. Go out and find about the latest current thinking in this. And they're very good researchers. Typically these people are studying at Manchester Business School or Manchester University or UMIST, and they come and join our company a day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and they help us with research projects. Our latest piece of work, the piece of work I'm going to share with you today, is the new people matrix management model. And for those of you who have how many of you have an interest in working in human resources or people management as a career? Okay, so for you, you might find this very interesting, but even if you don't envisage going into that field, you still should find it interesting. So the people matrix model has been launched 2 years ago in Poland, and it's now being rolled out around the world, and already we have about 8 to 10 organisations who are piloting the new model. So we'll explain it in a little while longer. And the recent next piece of work we've done is our international mini global MBA. It's not an academic MBA, it's a senior management development program that we've got accredited with Open College Network UK. It was piloted in June in Ghana, in West Africa, by 2 companies, a bank and Renault Mitsubishi Motor Company. So these are the latest pieces of work that we're rolling out, cutting edge, current thinking with a global theme to all of the subjects. I set up some years ago the Michael A. Potter Bursary Award. You know, one of the most important things in this day and age, would you agree, is corporate social responsibility. Do you think it's important? Yes. Why do you think it's important? Why? Why do you think it's important? Why is it important for companies? Do we have a microphone that maybe we could use for people who want to, maybe an additional microphone? Well, corporate social responsibility, I think, is a must, you know, for organisations today. It's about giving back. It's about giving back to society, isn't it? Would anybody like to tell me why corporate social responsibility is important? Yes, sir.
I think because we're doing business in the community, we are making profit, so we really have some responsibility to the society for their well-being. So it is a good idea to invest some of the profit for the benefit of the people.
Yes.
So it also helps the organization make a good brand. I mean, to have a, what should I say is, I mean, people when they are talking about your company, they will share that that's a good company because they also help us in many ways.
Yeah. Corporate responsibility adds value to brand. Would you agree with that? Would you agree that organisations that are doing things, CSR and helping society, enhance their brand and their image? Would you agree? How many of you want to work with an organisation that has a good brand? Hands up. How many of you, when you leave university or in your present job at the moment, were attracted by an organisation with a good brand? Most of you, yeah? How many of you would like to work for a big company with a bad brand? Hands up. Okay, 1 person at the back. 2. Okay. Generation Y, predominantly 20-somethings, the majority of you in this room today, when surveyed, and we'll go on to the survey a little bit later, PricewaterhouseCoopers survey, insisted that when they left university or college, one of the things that was most important to them was joining a company with the right brand. So it's very important. So I set up my bursary award. This is me just giving something back. I set it up in Ghana, and you can see 2 Ghanaian ladies there who were the recipients of the award. Basically, it was an assessment. There was a criteria that you had to go through, and it helped them to complete their final years of studies with their fees being paid, their books and travel expenses being paid. And so it's moved from Ghana now to India, and then next year maybe we will run it in another country, maybe Bangladesh, who knows. So let's move on as to why we're really here today. We're going to be talking about, first of all, changes in the global workforce. Do you know that by 2020, 50% of the working population will come from Generation Y? Did you know that? 50% of the working population globally will come from Generation Y. That's the 20-somethings in today's world. So that's what's going to be happening within the next 5, 6, 7 years. So the world of work is changing. I'm a typical example of that. When I first started work, I just based myself in the UK. Now the world is my oyster. I can be anywhere in 24 hours. Have bags, will travel. That's my motto. If you go to my home, you always see one case of clothes all ready to go. Yeah? Sometimes I have to hit the ground running. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and forget what country I'm living in. Have you ever done that? It's quite frightening. One day I woke up, I thought I was in Singapore, and I was in Africa, because I was travelling that much. What's driving the world? Globalization. Wherever you live in the world now, you're affected by globalization. The 2008 meltdown that started in the West has reverberated around the world. Would you agree? It's affected nearly all economies across the world. Technology is changing. You buy your Samsung Galaxy 4, wherever it is, 6 months' time it's a Samsung Galaxy 5. Yeah? Your widescreen TV is now a curved TV, widescreen TV. You buy the latest gadget, you think you've got the gadget, and then 6 months down the line, something's replaced it, yeah? Would you agree? Technology is shifting so quickly. When I retired from corporate life, computers were just being installed. Emails weren't even around. Now you can contact somebody on the other side of the world within seconds, can't you? Technology. We changed that quickly. All of you in this room are social media experts, whereas people like me, a baby boomer, not so good. You could leave me standing with social media. You could text one message by the time it takes me to text 3. Easy. I could not compete with you. So the young people today are social media experts. In Nokia, are you all familiar with Nokia? Where does Nokia come from? What country? Do you know? Huh? Finland. Do you know where Finland is? Anybody been to Finland? I went to Finland once, it was minus 30. Can you imagine? Minus 30. I had a moustache during those days, and as I was walking around Helsinki for an hour, when I got back to my hotel, my moustache was completely frozen. And then all of a sudden water started dripping on my table as my moustache started to defrost. It was that cold. Beautiful place, but very cold in the winter. Demographics. In Bangladesh, 50% of your population are under the age of 25. You have a young, vibrant workforce, potential workforce. The average age of the worker here in Bangladesh is 20-something. The average age of the worker in the so-called mature markets is 40-something. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years. The mature markets might not have enough talent to go around to fill the jobs. So there's going to be backfill. You know, when I flew in from Dubai to Dhaka, the plane was full of Bangladeshi nationals coming back home, having worked in countries like Qatar, Dubai, and places like that. I spoke to one or two of them. I said, "Why are you travelling to Dhaka?" They said, "I'm going home. My work is in another place now." The plane was full. People are migrating and moving and changing jobs more so today than ever before. Migration is here to stay, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. How many of you here would like to work in another country other than Bangladesh? Hands up. Hands up. Okay. So over a third of you would like to work, what I would say, overseas. Outsourcing is beginning to happen in corporate world. Security, catering, salary, wages, all being outsourced. Cleaning, all these jobs now are being outsourced. Traditionally they were people who would be on the payroll, but in today's world, companies are outsourcing jobs like that, globally. International mobility, people are travelling more so today than they ever have done before. New labour laws, to a certain extent, also influence the amount that people can travel around the world. So what are the challenges? Well, there's a distinct challenge. There's a lack of talent. Do you know, 1 in 3 jobs today globally are unfilled? Did you know that? Around about 30% of all jobs advertised today are unfilled. It's hard to believe that, isn't it, with there being so many people looking for jobs. But the main reason that they're unfilled is because people lack the competency, the skills and the attitude to be able to fill those jobs. So whose fault is that? Is it the fault of the individual? Is it the fault of the corporate business? Is it the fault of the university? Is it the fault of the governments? Or is it everybody's fault? But it's a big challenge. Generation Y, Generation X will slowly replace the matures and the baby boomers. As they begin to leave the job market, the new people will come in. The challenge today for a lot of organisations is retention. It's difficult to recruit people with the right skills and the right competence and the right knowledge, but it's far more difficult to retain them once you've recruited them. It's a big challenge for companies. In Bangladesh, the retrenchment rates are relatively low compared with a lot of other countries with high retrenchment rates. Managing older workers is another challenge, the matures and the baby boomers. Because the matures and the baby boomers are the people who have all the knowledge, the wisdom. You know, I wish I knew what I know today and had that experience when I was 20. If I knew what I know today when I was 20, I'd do things completely different. But we can't be like that, can we? We have to live, we have to make our mistakes, we have to make our decisions. We live by the sword, we die by the sword sometimes. So wisdom, you cannot buy wisdom. You cannot buy wisdom, you can only experience. And then when you get to a certain age, you have the wisdom. Workforce diversity. Again, you know, as Bangladesh develops as an economy, a growing economy, your GDP has been 6-point-something% now for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Even though there was political turmoil here, you still managed to produce 6-point-something GDP. If there was no political turmoil, who knows what you could have, maybe 10%. So the country is going well. Bangladesh as a nation is moving forward very, very quickly. There was a program on Al Jazeera yesterday looking at Bangladeshi entrepreneurs. Did anybody see it on the news last night? It focused about Bangladeshi entrepreneurs, and they were saying that some of the entrepreneurs here in Bangladesh are now starting to operate fresh food delivery So you could order on the internet and they would deliver it to you. And it said that the traffic in Dhaka is terrible. People don't want to go to the shops because it can take hours. So now these entrepreneurs are delivering in their little delivery vans your food that you can order on the internet within so many hours of ordering. So Bangladesh is moving forward. You know, I was very surprised when I came. This is my second visit to Bangladesh. First visit was February. Second visit is today. I was surprised how quickly your country is moving forward. You know, the opportunities here are endless. The opportunities are endless, I believe. So, you know, as young people, you know, you will be the future creators of wealth. You will be the future people who will be taking the top jobs in the future in the corporates. So a lot of it will rest with you in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Worker loyalty and motivation. You know, the Generation Ys globally, one argues that maybe their loyalty isn't there like yesteryear. The matures and the baby boomers may be sticking a job for 5, 10, 15 years. Evidence suggests the younger people of today, after 2 or 3 years, they're looking for something else. They're looking to move on, move up. And if they don't move on, move up, they'll move out. So maybe loyalty isn't here as it was previously. So these are some of the challenges. But this is a little focus on Bangladesh. So look at the growth, 6.1%. Inflation is relatively low, 6.2. Population 167 million, a huge population. You can see that your labour force, some 79 million, 40% at the moment is agriculture, but I'm led to believe that the service sector is growing and growing and growing, and that's going to increase rapidly. Unemployment 9.3%, but you have a huge, huge population, 50% of the workforce under the age of 30. A huge talent pool, a huge resource for potential for the future. Look at the demographics. On the right hand side, you've got demographics of the so-called mature economies. Most of the so-called mature economies are bankrupt. They're bankrupt. They're still recovering from the crash. In the United Kingdom, the taxes are that high, and it's the people who are having to pay the money back due to the mismanagement of the banks in the past. Everything that moves in the UK has a tax on it now. It's becoming unbearable. If you look at countries like Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Iceland, they all collapsed. They all collapsed and went cap in hand, borrowing money from the European Monetary Fund or the Central Bank of Europe. In fact, there's only one economy in Europe that's growing. Which country is that? Which is the strongest economy in Europe? Anybody?
Germany.
Germany, absolutely. Germany is propping up the whole of the European Union. It's a very strong nation. Not only is it a strong nation, it won the World Cup as well, which even makes me feel worse. My own team, England, they always have high aspirations going to the World Cup, but I know as well as anyone else knows what's going to happen to them. They never do anything anymore since 1966, when we won the competition. So, this is the population in less developed countries. Look at the talent here, under 30, compared with the talent here in the so-called mature countries. So it doesn't take a rocket science to work out that in the next 10 to 15 years, some of this will have to come here. Otherwise, there will not be enough people to be able to do the jobs. Canada, for example, is one of those countries that has opened its door to talent. They're inviting people with the right skills, knowledge and competencies and trades to go and live and work in Canada. Anybody like to live in Canada? Hands up. Okay. So they're looking for people like you. Canada is a vast country with a relatively small population, and they've realised that if they don't do something about it because their population is ageing, they're going to be struggling. So they've opened the doors and they're welcoming foreign people with the right skills and competencies to go and live and work there. So look at the Bangladesh population pyramid. As I said, 30%, 50% of the population is in fact under 25. The potential here is endless. So let's have a look at some world statistics compared with Bangladesh and some projections for the future. You can see here in 1950 the world population was at 2.5 billion. China and India alone have that population now, don't they? Roundabout. You can see how much it's accelerated. In 2010 the world population went to nearly 7 billion, and it's expected by 2050 to go up to nearly 9.5 billion. Bangladesh, 1950, 38 million. 2010, 151. It's expected by 2050 to go over 200 million plus. Another 50 million. On the news yesterday it said that in the future every 1 in 3 babies across the world will be born in Africa. Will be born in Africa. They're the projections. So that could be a good thing or a bad thing for Africa, depending on the state of its development. We live in an aging world. If you're living in Japan, the highest median age in Japan is 41 years. Japan is one of those countries where the population is getting older and there's not enough young people coming through. Japan in the next 10 to 15 years will be forced to take migrants from all over the world simply to survive. And if you look at even Spain, Spain is even higher. Let me talk a little bit about the young people across the world. The under 25s globally have been hard hit by this economic downturn. There's lots of people now who are graduating from good universities with good standard degrees who are unable, for one reason or another, to get a foot onto the job ladder. In fact, there's graduates now who have gone 2 or 3 or even 4 years without finding a job. It's becoming very, very difficult for a lot of young people. For the first time over the last 2 to 3 years, the graduates in Spain have been migrating to countries like Argentina and Brazil and South America, where they speak the language. In yesteryear, it was people travelling from South America to come to Spain. What we're seeing with migration now, it's turned around. We've got people in Western Europe now looking to go into Eastern Europe for work. 10 years ago it was the East coming into the West. Migration has been turned on its head. So we have a lot of challenges at the moment. There's a global talent shortage. There's lots of people on the market, but as I said earlier, 34%, a global average of 34% of all jobs are unfilled, which seems very strange. How many people have we got from the corporate world here today? Hands up, please. How many of you are finding it difficult to recruit the right staff? Yeah. Quite a few of you. Quite a few of you. And that problem is magnified even further globally. There's lots of companies now who can't get the right people with the right skills. So what sort of skills do we need then to be able to go into the job market? We need to have competence. Yeah? We need to have knowledge. You know, I often hear a younger person say, I didn't get the job because I've not got any experience. How can you get experience if you've never worked? Anybody got the answer to that one? It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's the catch-22. Well, it's true. The problem is now in other parts of the world, graduates, fresh graduates, are now competing with graduates who have graduated 2 and 3 years ago and still who haven't found work. That is the problem now. It's all backing up. So it's not just your peer group you're competing with in other parts of the world. It's the people who were 1 year and 2 year above you at university you're still competing with. It's making it very, very difficult. And I suppose those people a little bit older might have some opportunity to get some work experience somewhere, someplace. One could say that maybe the universities should be doing more in terms of internships. How many of you have an internship as part of your degree? Hands up. Is it for 6 months, 3 months, or 1 year? What is it? 3 months. So you just do 3 months, do you? Is that it? Or do you do 6 months? How much time do you spend in industry as part of your degree? 6 months. Is that enough? Yeah. In some parts of the world, universities spend the whole 3rd year in industry and they come back for the 4th year. And those 3rd year students who go into industry, into corporate life and do really well and impress their employer get snapped up at the end of that 3rd year with a retainer. And the company says to them, right, we were impressed with you, we've seen you for a year, we're going to sponsor you for your final year at university, and we're going to offer you a job. So there are some benefits. Some universities do 6 months in the 2nd year and 6 months in the 3rd year. So I think a minimum 6 months, but ideally 12 months should be added, this is my view, maybe I'm wrong, should be added into the curriculum of the university student. Because what is lacking in many cases is the transition from being an academic student into the world of work. Would you agree?
Yes.
That is the biggest challenge these days. So maybe the time has come that we start to look at the way we develop our young people, the way we train them, the way we develop them. What are we actually looking for them to do? So these are some of the challenges. So you can see in Asia Pacific that in fact in some cases 50% of all the jobs advertised were not filled. That is significantly high, isn't it? Because of the global recession, there has been a downturn globally. I'm not talking about Bangladesh in particular, but globally in terms of the numbers of graduate opportunities available. Graduate programs. How many of you would like to go onto a graduate program when you finish your degree? Hands up. A graduate development program. Okay. So there has been a reduction due to the demographic, due to the economic situation. Talent mobility. If we look at the 1990s to 2010, you can see there was a lot of migration, but look at it now. Look at it now. People are coming here, there, everywhere. Everybody's travelling. Bangladesh is exporting its talent pool across the world. Would you agree?
Yes.
You have to be careful that you don't lose all your talent. India has become the IT consultancy of the world. Would you agree? The IT consultancy for the world. It's the talent pool for IT. Wherever I go across the world, Asia, Europe, Middle East, Africa, there's some Indian worker there working on IT all over the world. So people are migrating. Philippines is another example. If you go to Dubai Airport, how many people have been to Dubai Airport and experienced it there? If you arrive at Dubai Airport, I was there on my way here, I thought I was in the Philippines. I thought I was in Manila, walking around Dubai Airport, and for a moment I thought, where am I? Where am I? Am I in Manila? No, I was in Dubai. But 80% of the workers
in the Dubai airport working on the duty-free shops, the cafeteria, the restaurant, and all the other are Philippine. Now the Philippine is quite similar to the Bangladesh worker. Have bags will travel, in many cases. And the Philippines is also facing a brain drain. We have to be careful how many people we let go out of our country. We can't stop them, but of course it could create a problem. Back in the 1980s, there was a shortage of nurses globally. What happened? Europe, Australia had a distinct shortage of nurses. So they came in and they took nurses from the Philippines. They took nurses from Ghana, even in West Africa. Why? Because they had a similar training program and standard. And the result of that was that the Philippines were left with next to no nurses. All the nurses left, and all of a sudden medical care in the Philippines was starting to suffer because the baseline of nurses was not there. They had to backfill from other countries. I was in Bulgaria. No, sorry, wrong country. I was in Romania 4 years ago. Bucharest, capital of Romania. What an exciting place. And I was there and I was chairing a conference. And this company said to me, we had a vacancy, 50 manual worker, been advertised for about 6 months, 12 months, couldn't get anybody to fill the job. At that time, the Romanians were migrating into Western Europe. They were going into Germany. They just joined the European Union. And the young people were migrating. They wanted to see what was on the other side of the fence. They were moving into Germany. They were going to the UK. They were going to Holland, the Netherlands, to see what it was like. It left a brain drain. They couldn't fill these blue-collar vacancies. What happened? Have a guess where they got the worker from in the end. Have a guess. Took them 18 months to fill the jobs. Have a guess where the workers came from.
Somebody came back?
Huh?
Somebody came back?
No. They were filled by foreign nationals. Have a guess from where from?
India.
Huh?
Sri Lanka.
Huh?
Sri Lanka.
No. It's in Asia. Begins with C. China, of course. It's not a small country, is it? 50 Chinese nationals went to fill those jobs in Bucharest. You know, China is just about the highest populated country in the world. But in the next year or two, India will take over as the highest population country in the world. Mainly due to the fact in China they've had a one child per family rule for the last five or so years. The Indians, there's no problem. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No problems. No one's counting. And all of a sudden, India now is accelerating above China and will take over as the highest populated country in the world. And both India and Chinese economies are growing every day stronger and stronger and stronger. Will these be the future forces of tomorrow? I suspect they will, if they not already are. Salaries are rising and rising. Saying that, in some parts of the world, the salaries are not rising. A friend of mine rang me 2 months ago and said, Michael, I need to tell you something. I said, what's that? Well, he said we had our annual meeting with our CEO and the board, and they addressed all the workers were like this in a room, and they were going to announce about what the pay award would be for the next financial year. Everybody's expectations were high. They were expecting 3%, 4%, something like that pay increase. And the CEO then announced 3 options. 2 options basically. He said to the workforce, I'm sorry, there is no pay increase this year. Our company has not been doing well. We have been struggling to survive. But I can give you 2 options. The first option is that you can take a 5% pay cut. And the second option is that you can lose your job. That was the stark reality of what's happening in some other parts of the world. What would you do in that situation? You would take a pay cut. How many would take the pay cut? Hands up. How many would take the pay cut? How many would resign? Hands up. Okay, a few of you would resign. The problem is then getting another job in that part of the world. That is the problem. The majority of the people accepted the fact that the company was not doing well. They took the pay cut. But the company did say, when good times return, we will not forget the sacrifice that you as our employees have done. So in other words, they were saying, you will get a reward. Okay? But that's the stark reality of some parts of the world now. The movement of talent is expected to continue as employees are willing to relocate. So talent has been more mobile than ever. I was astounded to hear some of the sizes of the companies in Bangladesh. I came across one gentleman the other day and he told me that the organisation employed 50,000 people. I couldn't imagine working for a company with 50,000 people.
Who's that?
I can't even remember who it was, but can you imagine working in HR? How can you manage all that? Or maybe I got my numbers right. Is there companies in Bangladesh with 50,000 employees? Yeah. Unbelievable. When I was doing some work in India for GAIL, does anybody know what GAIL means? GAIL. What does it stand for in India? It's like a girl's name in the West. Gas Authority India Limited. They said they had something like 45 to 50,000 employees all over India working on gas installations. I just couldn't imagine running an operation that big. Huge organisation. People issues, particularly on leader development and succession, will be the key focus. In this part of the world, there needs to be more emphasis on talent management and on succession planning. I think it has to improve. Young people now want... Why do people leave their jobs? Let's go back to it. Why do you think people leave their jobs? What are the three main reasons why people leave their jobs, do you think? Number one. A better opportunity? That's not one of the top three. They don't like their boss. That's one. What's the next one? Salary, number two. And? The environment could be another issue.
Career growth, right?
Career growth could be another one. Any others? Any other reasons why people leave their job? People at the back there. I'm watching you at the back. Any other points? We need more points from the back. Okay. Let me give you the three main reasons why people leave their jobs. Can you hear me at the back okay? Can you hear me? Number one reason, they don't like their boss. These are global reasons, not just here in Bangladesh. Number one, they don't like, or they hate their boss, you know. They dread going into work every morning because their boss is moody, they don't treat them fairly, maybe it's the fact the boss has not been trained well, you know. Number two, they're bored. They go into the job and every day they do the same thing, day in, day out, the same old thing, you know. They get bored, they lack autonomy. And now I'm talking about professional level staff, yeah? I'm talking professional level. And the third one is they don't like the pay, it's too low. Yeah? They're the three main reasons why people leave their jobs. Now if organisations know that, they should focus their retention strategies on those three things. They should have good bosses. They should have bosses who are trained, who are well trained, well organised, they know how to teach people, help people, work with people. They should have a competitive salary base, and they should try to make work and life as interesting as they can for people, even by adding extra projects and work to job enrich the individual. So these are the three main reasons. You see, younger people going into the world of work today, they look, what interests you? What interested you? For those who are in corporate life now, when you were looking for your first job, What attracted you to a potential employer? And for the younger people here who are just about to graduate or studying, what will attract you to a potential employer? What things attracts you? What attracts you?
The working environment.
The working environment, number one. Any others? Is the salary the most important thing for you? Yes. Salary. Salary is the most important thing for me. Hands up. Salary.
If it's the first job, salary.
Salary. About a third of you put your hands up. What other things are important to you? Huh? Learning opportunities. For those of you, learning opportunity, learning, training and development are the most important things for you. Hands up. Okay. Any other points? Brand. For those of you, how important is it to join an organisation with a reputable and good brand? Hands up. Okay. Yeah. Any other points? Career growth. How many of you want to join an organisation that can offer you career growth? Hands up. How many of you, if you join your company and you're there 2 years and things aren't happening for you, how many of you would A, stay and wait for things to happen, or B, look to leave? A, stay. How many would stay? How many would look to leave? Okay. So, I think for younger people today, certainly all these things are important. Branding, salary, structure, training, development, but also the opportunity in career growth. And evidence suggests that globally that the Generation Ys expect things to happen fairly quickly for them. Otherwise, they may not be around. Yeah? You see, the younger people today, a lot of companies now are offering flexible benefits. So if you join a company, salary, you know what I mean by the benefits, the benefits package, yeah? Yes. So some companies now globally are offering flexible benefits package, like a menu, and you can choose the ones that are important for you. You may decide as a younger person that you don't want to contribute to a pension scheme just yet, but you'd like to buy yourself a motor vehicle, or you'd like to maybe find yourself some place to live, to rent or buy a small property or something like that. So some companies now are offering a range of benefits, a menu of benefits that the individuals can choose, rather than just giving them, this is it, these are the benefits, take it or leave it. We call it EVP, employment value proposition. The other important thing, I think, is culture. When we're talking about culture, I got invited to go to Taipei. Anybody know where Taipei is? Taiwan. And they said, Michael, come to Taiwan and talk about culture. So I said, what do you want me to talk about? They said, culture. So I said, what aspects of culture? They said, you decide. Okay, so I thought, okay, I need to do some thinking on this one. So I got my think tank around and I said, look, we've had this assignment now, I have to go to Taipei and they want me to talk about culture. Let's go away, come back in a week and come up with some ideas, on how we can produce something. And we came to the conclusion that in fact, culture is so important. I've been here in Bangladesh and I've experienced the richness of your beautiful culture here. But here is different to India. India is different to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is different to Germany. And Germany is different to France. So the first level of culture that we came up with was the culture of the country. Would you agree that each country has its own distinct culture? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. And it's true, isn't it? Yeah. And that culture, you see, is inbuilt. I was in Zimbabwe. Last month I was in Zimbabwe. I had the great opportunity of being invited as keynote speaker at the ZIPM, the Zimbabwe Institute of Personnel Management Annual Convention, at Victoria Falls. one of the 7 wonders of the world. And I had the great experience of going to see and visit the Victoria Falls. It was awe-inspiring. I've never seen anything quite like it. Beautiful. And when I was there in my hotel, one morning I got up early and I looked out and I could see impala, monkeys and wild hogs in the grounds of the hotel. You don't get that in Manchester. And I thought the richness of this culture here in Zimbabwe was fantastic. So I forgot what I was talking about now. So that was their culture. So the first part of culture is the country. The second part of culture is the corporate culture. For those of you who have worked in different organisations, if you work at Prime Bank, or Eastern Bank, or Citibank, they're all doing the same thing, but their corporate culture is different. Would you agree?
Yes.
For those of you who have had more than one job, so our corporate colleagues here, I expect that changing jobs would also be a changing culture, work environment. Am I right? Yeah. You know, corporate culture is sometimes derived by the people at the top, the CEOs, the personality of the CEO and the board sometimes help to create a corporate culture. And then the individual. So that's the 2 levels of culture. The country, the corporate. And I said the third level of culture was the personality of the individual. I look around this room here and there's not one of you alike. Yeah. There's no twins. There's no twins here. But even twins who are alike still have a different personality. Would you agree? Yeah? Yeah. So therefore, my paper, when I went to Taiwan, about culture, was 3 levels. The country, the company, and the individual. So when people start to talk to you about culture, think of the bigger picture. Because this is what we're talking about now. It's the bigger picture. So, let's move on a little bit. We're going to move on now to... Is this okay so far? Any questions? Any questions? Please. Hands up if you want to ask a question. Any questions? About anything? No questions. Thank you for giving me an easy life. I like easy lives. Oh, we have a question here. Never mention you're going to have an easy life because somebody will ask you a question. You see the problem there? Do we have a microphone? Microphone. So there's a gentleman here wishes to ask me a difficult question. Do we have any difficult people in the room? Any people who are difficult to deal with? You know, working in people management is sometimes dealing with difficult people, yeah?
Yes.
Isn't it? You know, I always say where there's people, there's problems, yeah? If we didn't have any people to deal with, things would be great. But we always have people to deal with, so where there's people, there's problems. Sir?
So I'm not a difficult, people, and I don't want you to ask a difficult question.
Okay, all right.
That's for my clarification. And
Thank
there
you.
is, you suggested some talent management. You had a list.
Yes.
Right? So one of them was develop a total reward strategy beyond just compensation. So can you elaborate this? How could we probably develop such a strategy, and what would be actually?
So we're looking at this second point here, yeah? Develop a total reward strategy just beyond compensation. Well, I suppose the likelihood is, for those of you who go to work in the private sector rather than the public sector, in many cases there's a bonus linked to the private sector. Would you agree? Unfortunately, if you opt for the public sector, there's not often a bonus there. But that's the choice that you make. So what I mean by a total reward strategy just beyond compensation, salary is important, but as we heard before, it's maybe not the biggest thing. So the total reward strategy would involve good learning and development, good coaching. So you join a company, they give you a good training package. Maybe they sponsor you to do an MBA part-time, or to do some accountancy qualifications, or some professional study. Yeah, maybe they appoint you a mentor, which takes time, effort and money. Yeah. So what we're looking at, the total reward strategy, and maybe the benefits package that they offer you. So what we're saying is it's more than the salary. People expect more than just the salary. So it's the whole thing, the learning, the development, the career opportunity, the promotion, the secondment, the mentoring, the coaching, all these sort of things. This is what we mean by total reward strategy, rather than just a salary. So it's all encompassing. So I'm going to walk around now. I'm going to watch what you're doing. I'm going to watch what you're writing. So this is my new paper, my new model, People Matrix Management Model. The world of work is changing. We're moving away from transactional work. All of a sudden, globally now, the theme seems to be around project management. Everybody seems to be project managers. They're working on projects. They're using project software, Microsoft projects. They're all getting qualified in Prince 2. They're all doing APMA to become project management specialists. The way of working has become very much project management. Is it happening here in Bangladesh?
Yes.
Are we moving towards more of a project management culture? And all of a sudden we're starting to work in Matrix. Does anybody know what Matrix means? You've probably seen the film on TV, The Matrix, have you? Have you seen that film? It's nothing quite like that. They don't dress in black suits and do funny things. But what does Matrix mean? What does Matrix? Can anybody give me an example of a Matrix management structure? Sir?
Matrix is the array of components.
Areas of competence. Yeah. Anybody else? What does matrix mean? Matrix. If you're working in a matrix team, what does that mean? I can't quite hear you. Can we get the microphone, please, to the gentleman in the far right hand?
It is one sort of transformation, like transformational leadership. Elaborate one unit or elaborate one characteristics to another.
Okay. Let me give you an example of what I mean by matrix management. First of all, the universities should be teaching you about project management. If you're not getting it here in Bangladesh, you're missing out globally, okay? But I'm sure they'll be including it, yeah? Are you being taught project management? All right, okay. So project management basically is where you're managing a project with a project team. Quite simple, isn't it? Matrix management means that you might have more than one expert in the team. So a matrix would be, let's say, somebody from finance, somebody from marketing, somebody from HR, somebody from procurement, somebody from engineering, somebody from research and development, coming together as a matrix team to deliver a project. So that's what I mean by matrix management. It means a group of people from the organisation with different disciplines coming together to deliver a project. Does that make sense now? Do you all know what I mean by matrix management now? A diverse team of people with skills and abilities coming together to deliver a project. Matrix management. So the role of people management has been evolving. It started 20, 30 years ago with transactional work. People managers or HR people were called welfare officers or administrators. We moved away from a transaction to more of a consultant style during the 1990s, where people were delivering in-house consultancy and expertise. And then in 1994, a gentleman called Dave Ulrich. Have any of you read of any Dave Ulrich's work in HR? Have any of you read about Ulrich? Well, yeah, you have, yeah. Well, Ulrich, his name is spelled U for unicorn, L for Lima, R for Roger, I for India, C for Charlie, H for hotel. Ulrich. How many of you know the phonetic alphabet, by the way? How many of you are experts on the phonetic alphabet? Phonetic. What does A stand for? I'm not going to go through it all. A stands for what? Alpha. B stands for? Bravo. C?
Charlie.
D?
Delta.
E?
Echo.
F?
Frank.
Foxtrot. G?
Eagle.
H?
Hotel.
I?
India.
J?
Zulu.
Juliet. Juliet. K?
Kilo.
L?
Lima.
M?
Mike.
That's me. N?
November.
O?
Oscar.
Oscar? I can never remember that one, thank you. P?
Papa.
Q?
Queen.
Q? Quebec. What's after Q? R?
Romeo.
S?
Sierra.
T?
Tango.
U?
Uniform.
Uniform. Or unicorn? Uniform. Uniform. V?
Victor.
W?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. X?
X-ray.
Y?
Yankee.
There we are.
Yellow.
Yankee. So, as global students, first of all, go away tonight and learn the phonetic alphabet, okay? You know, if you book a flight, if you're on the telephone, if you're dealing in if you go into customer service or sales, the phonetic alphabet is a global language. Would you agree?
Yes.
It's a global language. So maybe your tutor should set a little quiz for you next week. A quiz on the phonetic alphabet. Yeah? I'm only joking. But that's an example of, global language interpretation, the phonetic alphabet. You seem to be very good. I'll give you top of the class for that. So if you see I'm an entrepreneur, I look at every opportunity, you see. No, I'm joking with that. Sorry. So just coming back, this is the work that we've done. Our new model says that the world has moved on since 1994. All of a sudden now we live in an age of project management, matrix management. People are working in a different way than they used to. 1994 was 10 years ago. No, 20 years ago, sorry. Do you all remember the millennium? 2000. You're all old enough to experience the millennium, aren't you here? Yeah. Does the millennium seem 14 years ago? It was 14 years ago, the millennium, wasn't it? Does it seem that long or a shorter period? What I'm trying to say is that time goes very quickly, doesn't it? The millennium to me just seems like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But time goes quickly. And I can tell you that the older you get, the quicker time goes. When the millennium was here, I was a young man in my 30s. Now all of a sudden I'm getting old. Yeah? 14 years, and now I'm getting old, And now I'm concerned that I'm running out of time to do everything I want to do. So the moral of the story is, make the most of your time. Learn, develop, inquire. Yeah? Work hard, look for opportunity, develop yourselves. In this world, it's a shared responsibility to a certain extent, but you are responsible for your own development. Would you agree? Yes. You're responsible for your own personal development. It's not really the university. Well, the university, it's a shared responsibility to help you. Your corporate organisation, it's a shared responsibility. But actually, the main responsibility is with you. Would you agree? Yes. Never forget about your own development. CPD, continuing professional development, is very important. Keeping your skills and knowledge and competence up to date. It's very, very important. You might have a PhD from the University of Timbuktu, which is great. But actually, if you're not careful and you don't keep your skills up to date, you may become a dinosaur. Extinct. So that's why it's important to keep abreast of new technology, of new changes, of what's going on in life. Also, we have to promote ourselves. You also have your own brand. Your personality is your brand. Would you agree? Yes. The way you conduct yourselves, the way you act, yeah? The way you go about your day-to-day lives. You know, it's your brand. And you have to keep that brand enhanced. You have to keep adding to that brand. When you go for the interview, you have to show that you're a confidence. You have confidence, you know what you're talking about. Going for interviews is quite nerve-wracking in today's world. Whether it's an interview for a promotion, whether it's an interview for a job, whether it's an interview to become a member of some society or whatever. It can be quite daunting, but it's about building up one's self-esteem, building up one's confidence. Before you go to any interview, you should always practice. Practice interviews, mock interviews. You know, have a go with friends and families and close ones. It's very, very important to keep the skills up to date. Anyway, we're talking about the new model. So the HR business partner model, 1994, was based on this three-pillar model. Ulrich said that the new way is HR business partner. And the HR business partner would not be working in a silo in the personnel office. They would be out on the floor working with marketing teams, working with finance teams, so they'd be more involved with the business, the running of the business. So a HR person would become an expert in the business area that they're working. They would also have an understanding about finance, money, profit and loss. You know, even if you're not going into an area of finance, you should have a good understanding of, even if you're in engineering or marketing or HR or communications, you should have a good understanding of profit and loss, how to read a balance sheet. How many of you can read a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement? Hands up. I'm not saying you should all be accountants, but I'm saying you should have an understanding of how business works. It's very, very important. So his model was based on HR leadership, HR shared services, and centres of expertise. Ulrich said that we don't need organisations can centralise their services. You know, for example, I bank with Barclays Bank in the United Kingdom. And if I ring up Barclays Bank customer care helpline, it goes through to India. I know it's India because I can tell their accents. And I'll say, good morning, I have a query on my bank account, please. Can I have a balance or something? And the Indian voice on the other end says, sir, yes sir, we will be with you in a moment. I'm just loading your system. Now Barclays have outsourced their customer care helpline away from the UK into India. And Ulrich said that organisations should set up shared services. The problem is that according to a number of global surveys, the shared services is not working. It's not working for various reasons. The level of customer care, for example, has not been that good. Lots of complaints, lots of things haven't been happening. You move away from the organisation to a shared service area, you don't always get the service that you wanted. So this has not worked. The problem with HR is that it's not had, as a profession globally, it's not had a top person as a director. You've had the finance director telling the head of HR what to do. So therefore HR are not in the board level. So the model has failed to a certain extent. The centre of expertise goes against the grain of what I was saying earlier. We cannot afford to be an expert in one area. If you've got an organisation with experts and nobody else able to stand in for them, what could happen? Yeah. If the expert leaves, I was in Sun City, South Africa last November, and I was presenting my model, and one gentleman said, I disagree with you, Michael, about what you're saying about experts. He said, this man next to me is head of our compensation and benefits. He's been with us for 10 years, and he's a good expert, and it's all working well, and he's giving us all the advice, and everything's fine. So he said, I don't want him to start learn other things. I want him to stay as an expert for compensation and benefits. And I turned round to the gentleman and I said, fine, what happens if he leaves tomorrow? And the man didn't know what to say. You know, he didn't know what to say. So on the assumption that the C&B expert would stay, there wouldn't be a problem. But if the C&B expert handed his notice in, there would be nobody to cover the job. So we've spoke a little bit about succession planning and risk. We'll talk about that a little later. So this three-pillar model has not really worked. This is the classic HR model: business partner, shared services, and centre of expertise. This is what I mean by all of this. How am I doing for time? When's the break? What time is the break? Have I gone past my... How are we doing for time?
15 minutes more.
15 minutes more, okay. All right. So what's not working in today's model? This is according to Mercer. There was an international survey conducted by Mercer 2011-2012. This is what Mercer said about the HR business partner model. He said it's not strategically driven simply because there's not that many HR directors in the boardroom. They have the job title head of HR, but they're not in the boardroom. Therefore, they don't have the weight in terms of making things happen. Flawed implementation. Basically, what happened, people changed their job title overnight from personnel manager to HR business partner. That was great, it looks nice on the business card, but in fact, they weren't really given the tools and the training to be able to undertake the role of a business partner. They just changed their job title and maybe their job description. But that wasn't good enough. So therefore there was an insufficient HR skill set. People in the job were not competent enough to be able to carry out some of the roles of HR business partner. There was also the failure to provide top-notch services. Slow adoption of self-service, and also it had lack of support from line managers within organisations, and basically insufficient geographical focus. If you had more than one operation within the business, across the geographical regions, it wasn't really working. So therefore, what is the future? Well, at this part there's a... oh yeah, have we got the sound? Sorry. Can we turn the sound up? Oh. We need to stop this. People at the BSHRM, you've seen this one before, so I hope you don't mind watching it again. So can we go back to the previous slide? No, go back. Go back. Right. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in seeing that video again, you can get it on YouTube, if you can access YouTube, of course. It's called the People Paradigm, so you can play it and watch it again. Quite a powerful tool on video, looking on how the future will be changing. People working from home, technology, different ways of working, contracting in, contracting out, moving away from the traditional work, 9 till 5 operation. Across the world now already it's happening, in many countries now. People are not going into the office, they're spending 2 days a week working from home. Skype, webcam, you can even see your manager in the office and converse with them. There's no point, being stuck in traffic for 2 hours travelling to the office anymore when you can be equally as productive working from home. The big issue here is trust, letting your workforce work from home. They might be watching the soap on the TV rather than doing the work. But evidence suggests that most people who work from home are more disciplined. And actually, it's becoming more acceptable. But it will take time for organisations and for countries to accept this way of working. But clearly, technology has moved on so much, we don't always have to be in an office. I mean, a lot of organisations now have hot desks. Are you familiar with the term hot desk? A hot desk. When I worked in Canary Wharf, for example, back in the 2000s, I worked in the city in Canary Wharf. I worked for the regulator 3 days a week. And I used to have what's called a hot desk. A hot desk means that it's nobody's desk, but people at any time can come in and use that workstation, yeah? They call it hot desking. So people who just come in the office every now and again can use a hot desk. Rather than have your own traditional desk with your own workstation, your own hot desking now seems to be quite popular, particularly for those people who work from home 2 days a week. They come in 3 days a week working on a hot desk. It's just a new way of working. So we are living in a different age. It will take time. So the justification for the new model, and we're going to be stopping for a break soon. Is it okay so far, this? Am I boring you?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, I hope I'm not boring you. If I start to bore you, just put your hands up, okay? I know you won't do that because you're too polite. I'll tell you a little story, and forgive me if I've already told it to those people who have been on my earlier workshops. I went to, 2 years ago, I went to Bulgaria. Anybody been to Bulgaria recently? Yes, who's been to Bulgaria? I heard somebody say yes. All right, maybe they were joking. Anybody know what the capital of Bulgaria is? Sofia. It's also the name of my brother's little girl, Sofia. My brother married a Russian girl. She's from Russia, he's from England. Halfway between England and Russia is Bulgaria. And the city is called Sofia, so they called her Sofia. Nice story, yeah? Nice story. I like it. They've just had a little boy, so I'm trying to think what we can call him. Maybe Petersburg or somebody like that, I don't know. We have to think of something. I went to Bulgaria and I had a phone call from a company called Mobiltel. Mobiltel, Mobiltel. Any of you heard of this company? Mobiltel. They're a telecommunication company. Mobile phone, like Grameen phone, yeah? Similar. I've got a Grameen phone mobile number here in Bangladesh. Any Grameen phone employees here? Okay. Any other mobile phone employees here? Okay, so I'm not upsetting anybody there. Just wanted to check. So I went to Sofia and they said, Michael, we want you to come because we have 50 talents. Do you know what I mean by the word talents? What is talents? What do you think I mean when I say 50 talents? Huh? It's not currency, no. I'm joking. Yeah. 50 members of the workforce who have potential, yeah? Have been identified as young high flyer. They even call them hypo. That's a medical term, isn't it, hypo? But not in the medical term, they mean high performing talents, yeah? So they said, Michael, I want you to come. We have around about 50 to 60 of our talents. They're aged 26 to 32. I want you to come and give them a motivational talk about themselves, their career, what they should be doing, how they should be conducting themselves, how they should be developing their career. I said, right, I understand. So we put together a very nice program, presentation, no more than 40 minutes. I wanted to keep it short and snappy and to the point. And then the next thing they said, and then you can run a leadership program for our senior managers. I said, fine, I'm on my way. The next minute I'm on the plane, heading out to Sofia. I get to Sofia on Monday morning, I'm there at Mobiltel office. When I go to the office, I always get there early and I sit in reception. Why do I get there early and sit in reception, you might ask? Well, I like to watch the body language of the people coming into work. I look at their faces. I look at what they're saying, how they're interacting. I find out whether it's a happy place to work. I just look at their behaviour. Does anybody here like to watch people? Hands up. How many are good at watching people? How many like to watch behaviour? Yeah? Yeah, okay. Have we got any psychologists in the room, or budding psychologists? Well, when you go into line management or management, you have to be a psychologist anyway, even though you're not qualified. Would you agree? Even as a lecturer or a tutor or a senior lecturer, you have to be a psychologist. You have to be able to understand body language. Would you agree? You know, 7% of all communication is done through verbal, and the rest is through other means. So most of the way that we communicate is body language, yeah? So if you can read body language, it's a very, very good thing to have. So anyway, I'm there, turn up, Monday morning. I get the feel it's an okay place to work. So who's there to meet me? Renee, the training manager. Michael, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. Please come into the room. They take me to a room, it's something similar to this. And they put rows of semicircle chairs, about 5 rows, and then all of a sudden the talents start to walk in. You can tell they're talents, they all have smart suits, and they're walking in like this. I'm a talent, you know? Can you tell? All the talents are ladies as well as men. Yeah? I understand what you mean by that, though. We won't go there, though, okay? We'll stick to the story, all right? So the talents are coming in, both male and female. They're all smartly dressed, they all look very professional. And I thought, wow, these are powerful, powerful group of people here. These are the next tranche of managers for Mobiltel, yeah? Mobiltel has about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 employees. So these people have been identified as the future. So I thought, I have to be careful what I say here to these people. So anyway, I start my presentation. I have a nice interactive presentation, and I'm talking about how you can be motivated, how you should look after your career, how you should manage yourself, how you should manage your boss. Because you see, when you're in a job, one of the biggest challenges is managing your boss. How many of you here can manage your boss? Yeah. If you can manage your boss, you're on the road to success. Did you know that? Yeah. And you can only manage your boss if the boss is confident in your ability. Yeah? Then they'll relax. So anyway, I'm there talking. After about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I looked at the body language of these people, and 1 or 2 of them was going like that, shaking their heads. I thought, that's a bad sign, Michael. It's a bad sign. But don't worry, keep going. Keep going. So I kept going. After 30 minutes, round about 75% of the population were like that. It's not good, Michael, it's not good, it's not good. Time to go, maybe time to go home. I was thinking to myself, you know, when you're talking to a group of people and 100% motivation and everyone's disagreeing, how would you feel? The body language wasn't giving me what I was expecting. Towards the end of my presentation, the whole of the room was shaking their heads in disagreement. I felt bad. I felt bad, but I thought, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to finish. And I finished what I had to say, even though everybody disagreed with what I was saying. I thought maybe it's a cultural thing. Anyway, the strange thing happened. When I finished, everybody applauded. Now I thought, they must be polite people in Bulgaria. They didn't like what I was saying, but they applauded me quite nicely. So I thought, well, they're polite. We'll leave it at that. But I went away feeling not good. Do you know how it feels when you try to do something and it's not quite worked out? You don't feel good, do you? like you set an exam, you studied. You studied for your exam, you worked hard, you were diligent. And then when the exam paper come up, all the stuff that you revised weren't on the paper. Has that ever happened to you? Terrible. Happened to me. And then you go away from the exam thinking, oh, I could have done better than that. I'm disappointed in myself. That's what happened to me. So I went home, feeling a bit demotivated. Anyway, it was cold, so I thought, it was November, it was like -5, -6, Bulgaria. So I thought, I'll go out for a walk. So I got home, got changed, I went out for a walk. I thought, I'll go and get something to eat now. I found a Chinese restaurant. I went to the Chinese restaurant, sat down at the table. There was no Chinese people in the restaurant, only Bulgarian waiters and waitresses. The Bulgarian waiter, he handed me a menu. It was in Russian. I couldn't read anything. So I said to him, sir, do you have a menu in English? And he went like that and brought me one. And then he came up to me 5 minutes later and he said, order. So I said, I'll keep it simple. I've had a bad day. I don't want any other upsets. I'll keep it simple. I said, I will have chicken, fried rice and mushroom. And when he was taking his order, he was going like this. This man's disagreeing with me as well, and I'm just placing my order. Anyway, 20 minutes later my food came, as I'd ordered, and I thought that was strange. I didn't sleep that night. I was tossing and turning, thinking how badly I'd done at my motivational talk for their 60 or 70 graduates. I couldn't sleep, tossing, turning. That following morning I was up, and I was there again at Mobile Tel reception, sat in the reception watching people coming in, feeling a bit deflated. And who would come in but Renee, the training manager? And she said to me, morning Michael, how are you today? I said, I'm okay, Renee. Oh, she said, you don't look happy today, Michael, are you okay? I said, I'm okay, fine. I thought, I'm fine. She said, how did it go yesterday, Michael? I said, it was all right, it was okay. Okay, she said. Was it not any better than that? I said, to be honest, Renee, I said, I was there giving it my all, 100% commitment from me, telling everybody what I thought, and everybody was disagreeing with me. She said, what do you mean, disagreeing? I said, everybody was shaking their head in disagreement. She said, oh, Michael, in Bulgaria that means yes. Culture. Culture. We can take a break now. So shall we take a break for 15 minutes? I can't hear you. Sorry, I still can't hear you. Okay, we'll take a break for 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to request Mr. Mohammed Sabri to say something about the seminar. Thank you, sir.
Wish all of you good luck, because if I'm just going through to give any speech, then I'm quite sure this rhythm will be changed. So I don't like to change the pattern or rhythm. Thank you. Wish all of you good luck.
Thank you, sir.
PricewaterhouseCoopers, Mercer, and the Manchester Research Group findings. This is what we come up with. So this is my new model. We call it Next Generation People Management Model. And basically, we've changed the role of HR to people management professionals or people matrix professionals. And we've said to be effective in the role. By the way, if any of you are interested in this model, I have an article to support the model. The contact details will come up at the end of the presentation. So you can email my office and they will send you a copy of the article to support the model, because I'm not going to have any great time to go through the model in any detail today due to time constraints. So we're saying, as I said earlier, that the way we are working now is changing. We're moving towards project management work-based. We're moving towards matrix management. It's happening all over the world. Governance is becoming very important, particularly in the world of people managers. People managers will become responsible for policy, for procedure. I even think they will inherit things like corporate social responsibility, and to a certain extent they will become the gatekeepers of the brand. So I think people managers will all of a sudden find themselves doing things maybe that they didn't do before. So governance to a certain extent is not only making sure that the policy and the procedure is in place, but also that the brand is intact. Yeah? Strategy and contracting. We live in a world where all of a sudden the traditional permanent 9 till 5 job, like we knew it before, all of a sudden is under threat. It might not be the case here just yet in Bangladesh. You know, you may all have 9 till 5 jobs, but actually in other parts of the world now, the 9 till 5 job's under threat. The traditional way of working is under threat. Many companies now are outsourcing work. They're outsourcing security, catering, cleaning, the payroll, you know, and others. You know, transportation, it's all being outsourced to contractors. Some companies are not hiring full-time people. They're recruiting consultants as contractors to come in and do specialist work. So rather than have them on the payroll, you know, they contract them in as and when. Sometimes it's not 5 days a week, sometimes it's 3 days a week. Now this may not be happening here in Bangladesh, or it may be happening in Bangladesh. It is happening. But I can tell you globally, across the world, it's common practice now. It's becoming common practice. Some people your age have got 2 jobs. Now I know it might be unheard of here, but some people I work with work 3 days for one company and 2 days for another company, because they can't find that full-time permanent job and they can't afford to wait. So they're encouraged to look for opportunities. Now that might not work here in Bangladesh, but it's happening in other countries. So contracting in and out will happen, I think. There'll be more home working. You saw the video about the future. You know, we live in a changing world. And I think more people will be working from home. There'll be less cars on the roads. You know, the electric car is another thing that's coming in more and more now. You know, the car that has diesel and unleaded fuel may be replaced by the electric car. In the Philippines, for example, the traffic's that bad in the Philippines that on certain days you're not allowed to take your car. So if you have a number plate that ends in a odd number, 1, 3, 5 or 7, you cannot take your car on the road on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday. If you've got a car that ends in you can only take your car on a Tuesday, Thursday and a Saturday. And if the police see you driving in Makati City, which is like Dhaka, with the wrong car, they'll book you and give you a fine. Trying to reduce the numbers of cars on the road and try to encourage car sharing. That's what they're trying to do. In London now, you can't take your car into the city. They have a barrier, and it's called the London Barrier. And if you take your car beyond the barrier, you have to pay a huge amount of money to get through. Again, and they're encouraging park and ride. You park your car outside the city, they provide coaches and they coach you in. So just, you know, different ways of working. Strategy. HR should have a presence in the boardroom. That's what we're saying. Otherwise, the message will not get heard. If HR have not got a message, a director in the boardroom, they will never get their views over. You see, in today's world, it used to be finance that was the most important role 10 years ago, 15 years ago. The finance job was the key job. Globally now, the most important jobs are people management jobs. Why? Because people are the most important asset. Would you agree? In any organisation, people are the most important asset, aren't they? You're only as good as the people you have around you. Would you agree? And if you've got the right staff with the right skills and the right competence, you're going in the right direction. If not, there's a problem. So strategy is very important. Generations management, we're going to look at that now. You know, there's 4 or 5 generations currently in the working setup. Generation Y, Generation X, Baby Boomer and Mature, all currently in the work. And they all got different mentality, haven't they? You know, the Generation Y, the 20-somethings, most of you here today look at things slightly different to, say, a mature person who's late 50s, early 60s. Would you agree? But yet you've still got to work with them in the workplace, yes? Even though you may see things slightly differently. So generations management, we believe, is a very important thing. We have to be organisational savvy. We must, as individuals, know all about the organisation, inside out. What are the threats? What are the opportunities? What are the weaknesses? We must be business savvy. We must understand the bottom line, how a business works. We must be able to look for opportunities. We must have entrepreneurial spirit. We must be ambassadors for the company that we work. Corporate people with responsibility. Yeah? This is what organisations are looking for now. And context savvy. We must understand the context of the environment that we work in, our competitors, the laws, the responsibilities, what we can do, what we cannot do. Business ethics, which is another important issue now in the world of work. Business ethics, it's about being ethical now, isn't it? You see companies like Enron in the United States that embezzled thousands of people from pension funds and all sorts of other things. It's not the way to run a business. So this is the new model. So let's now quickly move on and look at managing a multi-generational workforce. We've done some work, some recent work on this. We call it generational psychology. How many of you have had a class on generational psychology recently? Okay. So we're starting to run workshops for organisations on generational psychology, and what we're doing is we're giving a half-day or a one-day program about how to work together as generations. You see, a multi-generational workforce can bring different people together, you know, with different mentalities. This is a little bit Americanized, I do apologize. I'm not American, as you know, but so do you know this person here? Do you know who this is? Who? Do you know who she is? Anybody know? Her name is Tina Turner. She's a rock singer. You may not have heard of her, but she's a big American rock singer. She's late 50s, early 60s now. She's what we call a mature. Now you must recognise the next gentleman. Does anybody not recognise the next gentleman? Okay. He's a famous person. In fact, he's just got a new 3-year contract. Yeah? He's got an extension to his contract because he got voted in, didn't he, for another term. So President Obama, like me, is a baby boomer. Yeah? Late 40s, 50s, okay? Baby boomer. Any baby boomers here?